Bebe Selassie, who's the director of the IMF's African Department, spoke at a media briefing on the organization's economic outlook for sub-Saharan Africa. He said, quote, "It's really important to not see such things, Bitcoin as legal tender, as a panacea for economic challenges that our countries face. You have to make sure that the legislative framework in terms of the transparency of financial flows, the governance framework around it, is all robustly in place." And joining us to give her thoughts on these headlines is Sanyade Okoli, CEO, Alpha African Advisory. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good to see you again. So what do you think of the Central African Republic and the Bitcoin adoption and the IMF response? Where do you stand?
Where do I stand? Okay, let's put it in context.
Yeah.
Central African Republic is the second country to make it a legal tender.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, Central African Republic is a small country with low GDP per capita, low growth, low literacy rate, about 37%,
right.
High poverty rate. So honestly, I don't think it's going to move any needle whatsoever.
Yeah. And so you agree with the IMF then that you've got to make sure you've got other areas of your economy working well before you proceed to go in there.
Absolutely. The other country that has it is El Salvador. But if you look at cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, if we take a country like the US, as at the start of the year, you had cryptocurrency adoption of about 8%, of which 44% roughly was Bitcoin. So we're still in the early adoption phase globally.
Right.
But having said that, based on patterns that have seen with the adoption of other things like the internet and smartphones, you kind of have gradual growth and then steep. But when that time will be, no one really knows. But I'm not getting too excited or losing any sleep based on what this Central African Republic has done.
Well, what do you stand on regulation? I'm glad you mentioned it's early days. What do you stand on the regulation of cryptocurrencies? Is it still,
the question is who, how?
Right.
Because let's face it, part of the attraction for these currencies,
it's opaque.
It's that you can't really regulate it.
Right.
So I think we've just got, and any regulation is being done, it's going to have to be country by country, jurisdiction by jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So again, we've got to think of exactly what we're trying to achieve.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. That's fair. Public holidays. Now, this could take up an entire segment. What do you think? What do you think of? Kenya has a holiday today. I think we've got Nigeria too. We're looking at our own set of days. The economic costs.
I know the economists are going to shiver when I say this, but honestly, it's much ado about nothing.
Really?
If you ask me, well, because you have public holidays the world over.
Right.
In fact, for me, my biggest issue with public holidays here in Nigeria is uncertainty.
Okay.
Because we know we're going to have public holidays. We know there's May Day. We know that the only thing different with the Kenya is the holiday due to the passing of the late President Kibaki, right?
Yeah.
So that is new. But then you have to ask yourself, is there precedence for them declaring a public holiday if a president passes away? In which case, it's not some big new thing.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, here in Nigeria, where people had planned, expecting that we were going to have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as public holidays.
See,
and now the government has said 2 days. People are thinking, who's the Grinch? Who's stealing the Muslim holiday or Workers' Day? So it's like, who's being...
This is still being debated. I've had two separate debates with people. One saying it's 3 days, another saying it's 2. So this uncertainty is exactly what...
The uncertainty is what we don't like as an employer.
Right.
Let me know what's happening and let me plan accordingly.
Right.
It's not a shock that we're having Workers' Day or Eid.
Right.
We all know we will have it every year.
Right, exactly.
Let's just know when so we can plan.
Gotcha. All right. Well, what about the economic argument around if you were a business in a restaurant in a business district and you rely on workers, coming in to have lunch, and then because I think Nigeria's got 15 or 16 public holidays per day. You still not.
As I said, we knew these public holidays were coming, and then let's look at the other side.
Okay.
Entertainment. spend
Right.
will be higher. Hospitality.
Right.
If people are out retail, people like I'm planning to shop.
Okay.
I didn't have time to shop because I was working.
Right.
Now I'm going to do a bit more shopping.
Right.
So we've got to, it swings and roundabouts, and also we can't just look purely at the economic impact. The analogy that came to my head was parents that work all the time to maximize the income of the household.
Right.
And not thinking about the other impact on family life, health, etc., etc. We've always got to look at things holistically. The holidays, except for the presidential holiday, they're not a surprise, and we want our holidays.
Gotcha.
And I'm an employer saying, I want my holidays.
We see what you're saying. Fair enough. Still on Kenya, the IMF backing the taxes of essential goods. What do you make of that?
Eyebrow raised when I saw tax on cooking gas. And of course, I did more research. And unsurprisingly, the usage of cooking gas, clean fuel, has decreased.
Right.
So on the one hand, we're talking about wanting, looking at the health impact of dirty fuel. We're talking about the environmental impact on fuel, on dirty fuel. But we're taking policies that fly against the face of what we all meant to be working towards. Now, I know tax is a tricky thing. Again, I will always say holistically, you've got to look at it holistically. What am I trying to achieve? In addition to raising tax income, what are the other things? So on gambling, tax on gambling, you want to limit gambling.
Right.
Anyway, so you've got to be quite strategic in determining what you do with taxes and not be solely focused on where you can grab the most amount of money.
So does that, very quickly, just about a minute ago, does that strategy involve the timing? Does the timing of taxes is as important as what amount of which you're taxing?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When's the best time for me to come to you for a loan? A few days before payday or a few days after payday?
A few days after.
Thank you.
Yeah. A few days after.
It can really make the world of difference.
Yeah. But do you I think you've already answered this. Do you understand the situation that Kenya is in, though? It's revenue struggles and,
And revenue struggles is always an issue.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I completely get that. But as you're doing that, you can't lose sight of the other things you're trying to achieve.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. So I'm not knocking them for raising taxes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying let's be quite careful about which taxes we raise and which we don't, because there's always the unintended consequences.
Gotcha.
Often foreseen. Unintended but foreseeable.
Do you think that for the past year, you and I, we've talked about COVID and its impact. Now we've got this war in Ukraine and this double header. Are you optimistic about African nations being able to wriggle their way out of this? Because there's debts is rising, which is causing them to raise these taxes. How do you see everything, things playing out for the rest of this year?
I think things will be tough.
Yeah.
We just need to knuckle down to it. And it's a question of how do we navigate a difficult landscape? But we have to survive. The continent cannot implode, and we cannot afford to make leadership decisions that could put the lives of many, security of many in jeopardy.
Gotcha. Sanyade Okoli, CEO, Alpha African Advisory. I wish you a good public holiday and lots of rest.
3 or 2? That's the question.
Exactly. That is the question. Thank you so much for joining us.